Welcome to episode 11 of our ComfyUI Tutorial Series. Today I want to talk about prompt generation, specifically using large language models, LLMs, to create prompts based on instructions that can be integrated into your workflow. I'll also cover how to generate a prompt from an image. Let's begin with how to use a vision language model to generate a prompt from an image. Go to the Manager and then to Custom Nodes Manager. Search for the word Florence and choose the node with ID 269 made by Kijai. Click Install. This will install a node that lets us use Florence 2, a vision language model developed by Microsoft. It's specifically designed for tasks involving images and associated text, such as image captioning and object detection. You usually need to restart, but first, let's update ComfyUI since there are some new updates available. You can click on the link to read more about each release on their page, where you'll find detailed information about the updates. If you're on the GitHub page where you installed ComfyUI, look for the Releases section on the right. Click on it to see what's new and make sure to check it from time to time. Click Update All, wait for the update to finish, then click the Restart button and confirm. This will install the node and update the interface. Always check the nodes after installation, as some may need additional settings or dependencies to work correctly. If you look at the installed nodes, you should see the one you added. Click on its name to open the node page. Scroll down to the installation section to see any dependencies you need to install. Without these, you might encounter errors that are hard to diagnose. Since I'm using the portable version in this series, and if you followed from episode 1, you are too. We need to run a command in that folder. Copy this long command, which will install the necessary components listed in the requirements text file. Go to the ComfyUI Windows Portable folder. In the address bar, type CMD and press Enter. This will open a command window with the path set to that folder. Paste the command and press Enter. Let it install the necessary components, then close the window. Also, close the ComfyUI window so you can restart ComfyUI as well. When you run ComfyUI, you might see an error about not finding the path of the LLM folder. Don't worry, after you run your first workflow, the models will automatically download into that folder and the error will disappear. The LLM folder should appear after the first run. Clear your workflow and start fresh to explain the process step by step. Double-click on the canvas and search for Florence. Add the node Florence to run. This node has inputs and outputs. On the left, it needs an image, so add a load image node and connect the image output to the image input of the Florence node. It also needs a model, so search for Florence again and add the node download and load Florence to model. The first time you run it, it will automatically download the model for you. Connect the nodes, and now we need to output the prompt. But what should we choose from the output? We need the caption option. A caption is a descriptive sentence or phrase that explains or summarizes the content of an image. To output the text, use the Show Any node or any node that displays text. This one is from the Comfy Easy Use Pack, which we installed a few episodes back. The first time you run it, it will download the model and necessary files. Be patient, as this only happens the first time. When it's ready, you'll see the LLM folder with the Florence 2 base model folder inside. This is because the default model is selected. If the output doesn't look like a prompt, it might be set to region caption. I click on that and choose caption instead. Running it will give you the caption. If the caption is too short, you can use detailed caption to get a longer prompt. You can choose the level of detail you need. I prefer more detailed caption for a nice prompt. There are different versions of the Florence models, similar to Stable Diffusion. The base model is smaller and faster, so if you don't have a powerful video card, stick with it. You can also try versions like SD3 Captioner, which will also download a new folder the first time it runs. The node page includes a link for downloading the model folders if you encounter any download errors. Now, everything should be ready. The first run takes longer, but after that, getting a caption from an image should be quick, about half a second. I tried a few of these models, and some are faster and more accurate than others, but it also depends on the image and the Stable Diffusion model you're using to generate it. None work perfectly, but they provide a good starting point for a prompt. Cog 2.2 also gives some nice results. My favorites are the SD3 Captioner, Cog version, and Prompt Gen version. You can see all the folders I have here, and if you look inside, each one has different model sizes. Cog is the largest, followed by SD3 Captioner and Prompt Gen, with the base model being the smallest. Let's see how we can integrate this into any workflow. I'll load a basic SDXL workflow just like in episode 3. So let's add those nodes really quick. First, I add the Florence to run node. I like to add that first because I think about it as needing to run Florence. So it makes sense to choose the run node first. Next, it needs the load image node. So it has an image to analyze and get a caption from. Then it needs the model, as that's like the brain that knows how to extract the caption from the image. Now, all that's left is to connect it to our workflow, specifically to the text encode node where we usually put our prompt. But how do we connect it since we only have a clip input? We need to create another input. To do this, go to Convert Widget to Input and choose Convert Text to Input. Now we have a text input ready, and we can connect our caption output to the text input. Will it run? Let's give it a try. So now, instead of taking the prompt from the text encoder, as we usually do, we're using the Florence model to get a description of the image as text. This text is then sent to the text encoder, and the process continues normally with diffusion and other steps, just like we explained in other episodes with the text-to-image workflow. And the result is a chair. Ha. All right, Pixaroma, take a seat on your newly generated chair and reflect on your mistakes. Change the task to be a more detailed caption instead of a region caption. I'll also add a show any node so we can check what's going on inside that node and see the caption we get. Yes, that works better. So we interpreted an image, got the prompt, and ran that prompt to generate a new image that is somewhat similar to the original. It's text to image, not image to image. Here's one generated with the SD3 Captioner version of Florence. Looks nice. Let's try the Cog version as well. The first time it loads the model, it's a bit slower, but it will be faster the second time. Test different models to see which one works best for your system in terms of speed and quality. Let's choose a different image, like this anime girl. Now, the model I'm using isn't specifically fine-tuned for anime, so even if I test different Florence models, it captures the colors, subject, and pose correctly, but doesn't always get the style right. And even when it does, my SDXL model might not interpret it accurately. Of course, we can adjust the prompt to improve understanding or use a model fine-tuned for that style. But let's see if Flux can interpret that prompt better. I selected those 4 nodes and copied them. Then I loaded a Flux dev workflow from episode 10 and pasted the nodes. Remember, we just need to convert the widget to input first to be able to connect it to any workflow. Now I can run it, and let me move the nodes so they fit on the screen for you to see. Flux is much more accurate. Sometimes I get blurry images with the dev version, and the white background can trigger it occasionally, along with some random seeds. But as you can see, Flux is quite good at interpreting prompts. Let's clear the workflow and run more tests. I'll add another image with a portrait of a woman. I'll change the control after generation to increment and use a fixed seed. Then I'll duplicate it a few times and load a different Florence model into each of these tiny workflows. Now, when I run it, all those workflows will execute. You can see how each interprets the same seed differently, though the prompts are generally similar with just different wording. Sometimes when you have multiple workflows running, you might want to run only one without deleting, muting, or bypassing the others. A simple way to do this is to go to the final node of the workflow you want to run, right-click, and select the option Queue Selected Output Node. This option is part of the RG3 custom node pack. Even with multiple workflows, it will only run the selected one. This can be quite useful at times. Let me delete the other workflows and use just these 4 nodes. Select all the nodes you want, right-click on the canvas, and choose the option Add Group to Selected Nodes. This will create a group that fits all those nodes. When you move this new group, it will move all the nodes it touches. By right-clicking and going to Edit Group, you can change the title to something easier to remember, like Florence to base if you want. Now I'm copying and pasting those nodes, changing the Florence model to the cog2 version, and repeating the steps by adding a group and giving it a new name. So now we have two different groups, each containing similar but distinct workflows. If I hit Q prompt, it will run both workflows and you can see the flow from one node to another. But what if I want to deactivate a group quickly and easily? Right-click on the canvas, go to RG3 Comfy, and find the settings for that node. Scroll down to the settings and enable Show Fast Toggles in Group Headers. Then set it to Always and click Save. Now you'll see two small icons at the top right of each group. The first icon with an arrow through a node is Bypass. This skips processing inside the group while keeping the data flow intact. The second icon, Mute, completely disables the group, stopping both processing and data flow. If you prefer to have multiple workflows in one place, you can organize them this way. If I mute the first workflow and hit Q prompt, you'll see that only the second workflow runs while the first one is stopped. But we can do more. Double-click on the canvas and search for Fast Groups. In this case, I want the Fast Groups Muter node. Add that, and you'll see it automatically lists the names of each group on the canvas with a switch next to each name. You can click on the switch to turn the group on or off, providing a very easy way to mute groups with a single button from one place. Pretty cool, right? You also have an arrow next to each name that will take you directly to that group, helping you focus on it quickly. Let's right-click on the second group, go to Edit Group, and change the color to yellow. Now, if we right-click on the Fast Groups Muter node and select Properties panel, we have extra settings. In the Match Colors field, type the color name, yellow in this case. This will make the Fast Groups Muter node only show the yellow groups. If you're unsure of the available color names, you can check the color input, which lists all the color names. For example, if you put pale blue in the Match Colors field, it will only show that color. If you leave the Match Colors field empty, all groups will be visible without sorting. Now let's delete the second workflow. To remove a group, right-click on the group, choose Edit Group, and then select Remove. Let's test with a practical example. Edit the group title and add something like Prompt from Image. Now, the switch is easier to understand as it clearly shows Enable Prompt from Image yes or no. I'll add a positive node, just like we used before in our workflows, and include a text like my prompt. You probably guessed that I want to create a switch so I can choose between using a prompt from an image or my custom prompt instead. I'll add a node called AnySwitch from RG3. Now I'll connect the caption output to the Any1 input and the positive output to the Any2 input. For the string output, which is essentially just a text output, I'll add a show any node so we can see the result from the switch. If I run the workflow, I get the prompt from the image, as you can see here. But if I mute the group, notice how it's connected. You can mute it from the group itself or from the Fast Groups Muter. When I run it with the group muted, I get my custom prompt instead. Let me add another positive node and connect it to Any3 input. I'll add the text prompt number 3. If I run it, I still get my prompt. The way the AnySwitch works is by taking the first available option from the list. Since Any1 is disabled, it uses Any2, which has my prompt. If I bypass the Any2 entry, you'll see that it now uses Any3, which has prompt number 3. If all are disabled, I get a null value. So an easy way to use it is to keep all entries disabled and just enable the one you want to use. I will keep only the group that generates a prompt from the image and one positive node that I will use for my prompt. One way this could be useful is to run the prompt generator first, then copy the resulting prompt. After disabling the prompt generator, paste the prompt into the positive node, allowing me to edit it before it goes to the output. This setup gives us a simple switch to either use the prompt generated from the image or my own prompt. Let's see how we can implement this in our workflow. We'll load a Flux dev workflow from episode 10. I will convert the widget to an input for the text encoder so we can connect our new nodes there. I'm pasting these nodes to avoid recreating them. Now, from the AnySwitch, I can connect to the text input where we used to have our prompt, the text encoder node. I will move the nodes closer together and then recreate the group around the node. For some reason, I wasn't able to copy and paste the group as well. I'll name it prompt from image. You can see the title has been updated in the switch. Now, we can test the workflow. If we want to change the prompt, we can copy it, then disable the prompt generation in the switch. Next, paste the prompt into my positive node. Now I can make some changes, like giving the woman purple hair and a red coat instead. When I run it, we get a woman with purple hair, which is what I wanted. Once the workflow is working as expected, you can experiment with different Florence models to see if you can improve the results. The outcome is quite nice. I've created a more compact and organized workflow for you, so let's zoom in. First, you upload an image. I'll choose this building image. Next, select the model and the task. I'll stick with the Florence base model since it's faster. For the task, depending on how detailed you want the prompt, I prefer using the more detailed caption option. When you run the workflow, you'll get a description of the image as a preview. Since the prompt from image option is enabled, you can see it's set to yes. It will use that prompt and process it as usual through KSampler. I created a group here to simplify things. Once it's finished, you'll get this nice image of a building. If I want to use my own prompt, I can simply disable prompt from image. I aim to make the workflow logical, so I hope it makes sense. When prompt from image is set to no, it will use my prompt instead, which could be something like a cat if I want. However, I can also copy the previously generated prompt for the building and modify it, changing it from a 3D rendering to a digital painting, for example, and adding some fantasy and futuristic elements. Just make sure prompt from image is disabled so it uses my prompt. As a result, I get this nice illustration of a building. Pretty cool, I'd say. Now let's see how we can add a large language model to help generate prompts from text instructions rather than from an image. This is similar to how we ask ChatGPT for prompts. Go to the manager, then to the custom nodes manager. Search for Surge and find the node with ID 97 named Surge LLM. Click on Install, wait for the installation to finish, then click Restart and OK. After Comfy is restarted, go back to the Custom Nodes Manager, sort by installed, and locate the node. Remember to check if there are any additional requirements or dependencies. If you click on the title, you'll be taken to the GitHub page for that node. According to the installation instructions, we need a folder named LLM-guf in the models folder. Navigate to the models folder and create a new folder named LLM_guf. Now we need to download and place a model called Mistral in that folder. You can download it from the provided link. I'll include the links for you. There are several versions of the Mistral model available. Generally, the larger the model, the better the performance, but also slower. They recommend the Q4 version, but I've also downloaded the Q8 version. If you encounter any issues, such as an error about missing llama CPP, you can try running the following commands in the respective folder to try to resolve the problem. For me, it worked without problem, so hope it works for you as well. I will restart ComfyUI, and when it starts, you can check the command window to see that some nodes are running, including the search node, which is running without any issues. This means no additional steps are needed. Now, let's clear the canvas and start fresh so I can explain how it works. Double-click on the canvas and search for LLM. Add the Surge LLM node. Then, to view the generated text, add a Show Any node. In the text field, enter something like a cute cartoon cat. When you run the workflow, you might encounter an error. Don't be alarmed by errors. They often have simple fixes. Even if you don't understand everything the error message says, look for keywords that make sense. Here, the error indicates that a model is missing, but we've already downloaded a model into the folder we created. The issue seems to be that the model is undefined. Simply hit refresh, and you should see the model now. After refreshing, you should get a nice long prompt. If you try something else, like a cool car, you'll get a different prompt. Note that if you try running it again without making any changes, it won't work because it's using the same seed. To get a new result, either change the seed or modify the text. Let's load the Flux workflow again and see how we can integrate it. I have added the Surge LLM node If we try to connect the output from generated to the clip node, it won't work because we need a text input. So right-click and select Convert Widget to Input, then choose Convert Text to Input. Now you can connect the generated output to the text input. I'll also add a node from generated to monitor what's happening, such as a show any node to see how the prompt looks. For the text, I'll enter a bunny in the forest. Then I'll run the workflow. While it's running, let's arrange the nodes a bit so they're clearer and easier to view. The results look nice. Let's take a closer look at what's happening here. We have the text where we put our prompt, and we also have the instructions which say generate a prompt from prompt using the given format. This means the instructions are set to generate a prompt from whatever is in that text box. However, if I want, I can include all the instructions directly. For example, I could write generate a prompt from a cute cartoon bunny, and it will still work because the necessary details are included in the instructions. To make this more user-friendly and give myself better control, I'll right-click on the node, select Convert Widget to Input, and choose Convert Instructions to Input. This will allow me to add a positive node and provide ample space to write my text, making it easier to see and edit. I can write my prompt here, but remember, we need instructions, so use something like generate a prompt from. Now, it generates what I want using those instructions. You can add another positive node if needed, but keep in mind that only one positive node can be connected at a time. To handle multiple pieces of text, I'll add a text concatenate node. This lets me connect both the first and second texts. For the first input, I'll enter the instruction like generate a prompt for, and for the delimiter, I'll use a space instead of a comma to keep it continuous. In the second positive node, I'll put the subject and details of what I want the prompt to be about. Now we can connect the concatenated string to the instructions. To see how these text parts are combined, I'll add a show any node. When I run the workflow, you can see how the instruction is combined. Generate a prompt for a cute cartoon bunny. It uses the first part and then the second part separated by a space. The result is a cute bunny. I also tried pushing the limits of the models to see what else we can do. For instance, I have this image of a building. If you're using Windows 11, you can right-click on the image and select Copy as Path to get the file path. If you're using Windows 10, you'll need to click on Home at the top, where you can find the Copy Path option. Since we don't have an image input and this works with text, I thought of pasting the image path here. I tried that, and as you can see, it generated a prompt like generate a path for, which included the file path. However, it also provided extra information about the image that I didn't want in the prompt. So I changed the instructions to exclude the path and file name. When I ran it again, I got an image description. Although it described the building, it wasn't similar to my actual building, indicating that the Florence model did a better job initially. It can still be interesting to use and might produce some unexpected results. However, it seems like it needs a vision model optimized for describing images, similar to what we use with Florence at the start. The settings might not be ideal, leading to overly creative results, or we might need a different model. If anyone knows of a model suitable for image descriptions that is in GUF format, please let me know. I'm aware that Lava is another model that can handle image descriptions, but the GGF version I tried didn't work as expected. Let's try copying the path of this portrait of a woman to see what we get. I pasted the path and ran the workflow, resulting in this illustration. Clearly, it's very creative. If you want results similar to your image, you should use the Florence workflow. If you're looking for something more experimental or fun, you can use this method or perhaps search for a better model specialized in image descriptions. I generated this robot using the instructions and just want to point out something important. If you try to generate again, you'll notice that the prompt doesn't change. This is because the seed is fixed, even though it says random seed, which can be confusing. To get a different result, click on the arrow to change the seed or type a different number. Each time you run it with a new seed, you'll get a new generation. Just remember to change the seed each time you want a different result. I think this is set up so that the model doesn't reload each time you run the prompt, which speeds up the generation process. When you change the seed, it starts from the beginning, resulting in a slower generation speed. I have created a few workflows for you to experiment with. For example, I have one that requires all the instructions in a single field. You start with the instruction, followed by the description. I also have another one where the instructions are in two parts. You can put the instructions in the first part and just modify the second part, making it easier to adjust. Additionally, I created a more compact version that is better organized, allowing you to add the description in one place while also having the option to disable the generator if you prefer to use your own prompt. I also made a workflow that handles only text, similar to ChatGPT, but split into two parts for convenience. This one includes more advanced options for responses, and I've noted what each setting does. There's also a simpler version with default values and no advanced options. Let's test it out. The first run will be slower depending on the model you're using. The generation time likely depends on the length of the text as well. You can also request shorter prompts or even ask for a poem or a product description for a digital product. I haven't tested all the limits, but feel free to explore and see what it can do. It's free, local, and useful. I've created a formula for ChatGPT that can help you generate detailed prompts for Flux. On Discord in the Pixaroma-workflows channel, look for this formula, copy the provided part, and then go to ChatGPT. I use the mini version since it doesn't have generation limits. Paste and run the formula there. It will generate a prompt for you. Wait for the dot to disappear, then simply click copy code. After that, go to your Flux workflow and paste the prompt there. When I run it, I get this image. For example, if you ask for something like a cartoon bunny ninja in a bamboo forest, you'll get this result. As you can see, you can obtain some detailed prompts that are longer, which speeds up the prompt creation process, and you can edit the prompt afterward if needed. I've tried to cover as many options as possible for generating prompts, but there are more possibilities. I've already spent a lot of time on this episode, so I'll stop here. Thank you all for your support. If you'd like to support the channel, you can join the membership. However, a simple like or comment would also be greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching and have a great day.